Alrighty, yo, what is going on, everybody? It's your boy, Mr. DDG94, back with another reaction video. Today, we're going to react to how good was Ben Wallace, really? Without further ado, let's get right into it. How good was Ben Wallace? You need to check how many Defensive Player of the Year awards he done won. He's an NBA champion. Let's not forget that. How good was Ben Wallace? Really? Really? Y'all just don't know. Y'all just don't know.
One thing I've noticed throughout my years of watching the NBA is that the offensive side of the court is disproportionately celebrated over the defensive end of the court.
Facts.
And I don't believe that any single player is a greater example of that than the all-time great defender, Ben Wallace. But just how good was he really? In a perfect world, how much would he be celebrated? Today, I'll do my best to answer that, but in order to get a more thorough understanding of him, we'll start as we always do, by taking it back to the beginning of his career. The 6'9" Wallace attended college at Virginia Union University and actually went undrafted in the 1996 NBA draft. But within a matter of a few years, all 29 NBA teams would be regretting that decision. Wallace was eventually picked up by a mediocre Washington Bullets team, who was in need of some help in the painted area. In his rookie season, he hardly got any opportunities, as he only played 34 games and averaged about 6 minutes of action per game. Washington at least liked him enough to bring him back for a second and third season, and although he did see some progression, it remained slow going. By his third season with the team, he was averaging nearly 27 minutes per game, and although he was usually coming off the bench, he still managed to average about 6 points, 8 rebounds, and 2 blocks per game on 58% shooting. After Washington had missed the playoffs for 3 straight seasons, management was ready to shake things up. So in August of 1999, he was traded to the Orlando Magic. He would start in all 81 games he played that season, but he actually played a fewer 24.2 minutes per game, and had somewhat similar numbers to the previous season. With some remaining limitations on him, Orlando finished with an underwhelming 41-41 record and missed the playoffs. Orlando then decided to make their own big changes. After signing Tracy McGrady to a massive contract, they decided to get him a co-star and traded for the 6'8" All-Star forward Grant Hill. It was this trade for Hill that sent Ben Wallace to the Detroit Pistons, where his legendary career would truly begin. At the time, people were considering this a one-sided trade in favor of the Magic, since McGrady and Hill were seen as a superstar duo who could compete for championships in the Eastern Conference.
Little did they know.
That wasn't exactly the case, because not only did Hill go on to deal with consistent injuries, but Wallace went on to be much better than Orlando ever imagined. Although Detroit didn't have the overall talent to be a playoff contender just yet, Wallace was more than ready to assert himself as a terrific asset in the league. He started all 80 games he played in the regular season and averaged a career high up to that point 34.5 minutes per game. On the year, he averaged 6.4 points, 13.2 rebounds, 1.3 steals, and 2.3 blocks on 49% shooting. Immediately as a Piston, he established himself as one of the best rebounders and best defensive players in the entire league. With his remarkable strength and athleticism, he really was like a modern Bill Russell, in the sense that he was a team-first player who dominated the boards and the paint defensively. Yet he was not a great scorer by any means. Although he was now on the basketball map in a big way, it wasn't all positive. For example, that first season in Detroit, he shot a historically awful 33.6% from the free throw line. In fact, for his career, Wallace only shot 41.4%. That is literally the worst career free throw percentage in NBA history, and it's not even close. To emphasize just how bad that actually is, consider this. Shaquille O'Neal is basically famous for his horrific free throw shooting. Well, he could come out of retirement and shoot 3,000 more free throws and miss every single one of them, and he would still have a better career free throw percentage than Ben Wallace. Yes, Wallace was a master defensively, but you kind of need to be if you're gonna justify having a roster spot with that kind of foul shooting. In the following season, he would finally have some offensive support, and his Pistons started winning games. Along with that, Wallace led the entire league for the 01-02 season in rebounds per game and blocks per game. Thanks to this incredible effort, he was honored with an all-defensive selection, and he won his first Defensive Player of the Year award, which would soon become a regular occurrence in his career. Now imagine playing 80 games in a season, averaging a league-leading 13 rebounds and 3.5 blocks, winning the Defensive Player of the Year award while your team wins 50 games in the regular season, which was enough to earn the second seed, and you're still not selected as an NBA All-Star that year.
Wow.
If that doesn't tell you that defense isn't appreciated as much as offense, then I don't know what will. Now, in his third season in Detroit is when their incredible championship team finally started to take shape, as they acquired both Chauncey Billups and Richard Hamilton, giving Wallace the offensive support he needed for him to truly shine. For the second straight season, he led the league in rebounds, this time with a monstrous 15.4 per game, which was the highest league-leading average since Dennis Rodman in 1997. On top of that, Wallace averaged 3.2 blocks and 1.4 steals, which helped him win his second straight Defensive Player of the Year award. Finally, he was respected enough to be given an All-Star selection, which was the very first of his career. His Pistons went all the way to the 2003 Eastern Conference Finals before they were swept in 4 games by Jason Kidd and the New Jersey Nets. After acquiring the experienced veteran Rasheed Wallace, the all-time great Pistons were set for their epic run. The 2003-2004 season was supposed to be the year of the Super Team Lakers, led by Shaq, Kobe, Karl Malone, and Gary Payton. But Detroit had something else in mind. As the defensive anchor down low, Wallace set the tone for that team, and that squad went on to be arguably the greatest defensive team in the history of pro basketball. The amount of defensive records they broke in the regular season, and especially the postseason, was utterly astonishing, including the most times holding a team under 90 points, 85 points, 80 points, 75, 70, 65, and 60. They held teams to the lowest points per game average in playoff history, and they had the best defensive rating in playoff history as well.
Dang.
Honestly, I could probably make an entire video about the all-defensive records they broke that season, and the player who was most responsible for that defense was none other than Big Ben. The 2004 Lakers were good enough to be a championship team on most seasons, but this year they ran into the defensive juggernaut that was the Pistons. Although Shaquille O'Neal had a decent final series, averaging 26.6 points per game, that was still far less than what he usually produced in the finals, and the credit for that belonged mostly to Wallace, who was one of the few players in basketball history who was actually as strong as the Diesel, which meant that Shaq couldn't just bully him as much as he wanted to. Not only did the Pistons go on to win that championship series, but they did it in dominating fashion, closing out the Super Team Lakers in just 5 games. Obviously, this was the absolute pinnacle of Wallace's career, but he was far from done adding to his resume. In his next 2 seasons, he would win the Defensive Player of the Year award yet again, which meant that he won the award a whopping 4 times in just 5 years. His 4 DPOYs is tied for the most in NBA history, alongside of the great Dikembe Mutombo. After starting his career struggling to make the playoffs in few minutes of action, he went on to be a perennial winner with the Detroit Pistons, as he made the Eastern Conference Finals in 4 straight seasons, including 2 trips to the NBA Finals in 2004 and 2005. As his strength and athleticism started to deteriorate with age, so did his defensive impact, and because of that, he ended his career as somewhat of a journeyman. playing in Chicago, Cleveland, and eventually he made his return to Detroit, before eventually retiring at the age of 37. In total, he was a 4-time All-Star, but that was far fewer than what he actually deserved. He made 5 All-NBA teams, 6 All-Defense teams, was a 4-time Defensive Player of the Year, a 2-time rebounds leader, a 1-time blocks leader, and the 2004 NBA champion. Although he was certainly the epitome of a free throw liability, he was also one of the select few greatest defensive players of all time.
Facts.
And honestly, I think he's one of the most underappreciated players of all time.
Facts.
Considering how he only made 4 All-Star teams, and considering how long it took for him to go into the Basketball Hall of Fame. So what do you guys think? Just how good was Ben Wallace in your own words? I look forward to hearing your thoughts in the comment section below.
Man, this dude is arguably one of the best defensive big men I've ever witnessed in the game of basketball. There's not many like him. He's a special breed. I would say, man, if he just, I wouldn't even necessarily say he needed some offense. I would say if he just had like a decent hook shot or something like that, he would definitely be goated. Like, because imagine if he just averaged 10 points a game. Not even 15, not 18, just 10 points a game off a hook shot. Imagine that. He just had a simple hook shot that he does. You throw it down low to him, he hits that hook shot, he can get you 10 quick points. Detroit probably would have been... I never understood why Detroit let him go in the first place. I don't know why Detroit let him go to Chicago. That was the dumbest move they ever made. That was so fucking stupid. Because if they had Ben Wallace, LeBron doesn't have... LeBron and the Cavaliers don't even make it to the finals. They get swept. If we're being honest, if Ben Wallace was still on that team that year in 07. Now, versus the Celtics, then in 08, I say it would have won 7 games, but ultimately, I think the Celtics would have prevailed. That team was just too dominant. That team was just too good. That Celtics team in 08 was just too good, bro. That's way too much firepower for Detroit anyway. Especially considering around that time they were starting to deteriorate and they were starting to get old. So yeah, Ray Allen, Paul Pierce, and Kevin Garnett would have been too much for Detroit around that time. But that young LeBron in 07, they would have swept them if Ben Wallace was there. Because LeBron couldn't shoot, but you didn't have Ben Wallace to protect the paint. So what do you think happens? That was so stupid of Detroit to do that. But anyways, though, that's just going to about do it for this one. Tell me what y'all think down in the comment section below. In my personal opinion, Ben Wallace is a Hall of Fame. Did he make it into the Hall of Fame? I'm not sure. I have to look that up. But I know he's been a candidate for quite some time. I don't know if he's actually made it in yet. But I know he's a viable candidate now. Yes, they did make him a viable candidate to be in the Hall of Fame. I don't know if he's made it in or not. I'm not sure. I don't really keep up with the Hall of Fame like that unless it's like a notable name. Like, if it's a notable name, yeah. But for the most part, I don't really keep up with the Hall of Fame like that. But Ben Wallace should definitely be in the Hall of Fame. Just undrafted, 4-time Defensive Player of the Year, led the league in rebounds and blocks for many seasons, NBA champion, All-Star. He definitely deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. This brother was special, man. Like I said, it's not many one of the best defensive big men I've ever seen play the game of basketball. But yeah, that's just gonna about do it for this one. I will see you on the next video. Till then, peace out.